Oh, January. Go away now. What is up, guys, and welcome to my review of the latest Mel Gibson film, Flight Risk. This is a puzzling occurrence in cinema right now, I gotta tell you. This is a film that I've seen advertised well into like the middle of last year. I think it was actually supposed to come out in Q4 of 2024, but they pushed it to January for reasons that I now understand. But this is a movie that in its trailer I thought looked like it might be okay. It looks like a very short, simple, straight to the point movie with a maniacal Mark Wahlberg performance. That could either be terrible or it could be a lot of fun. But I gained a lot of curiosity on this one after it was finally revealed that this is Mel Gibson's latest film. And they're doing everything they can to hide that, by the way. You look at the trailer, you look at the poster, and it basically just says, from the acclaimed director of Braveheart and Hacksaw Ridge. They'll do anything other than put his name on the poster. And say what you will about the man himself, as an artist, as an actor, and especially as a director, Mel Gibson is one of the best to ever do it. I think that he is somebody that you can't really argue with that. Again, you can have your personal thoughts on him, but at his work, his body of work is pretty immaculate, especially as a director, which is all the more puzzling when you think about this movie being his choice to direct next. This is the guy that usually brings us big epics that win Oscars, that if nothing else get a lot of nominations. And you look at Flight Risk and it's like, this feels like one of those like throwaway movies that we would see in the 90s that would struggle to fill a 90-minute runtime. And Mel Gibson wanted to do that? Really? Why? The basic plot of this film is that you have a U.S. Marshal agent who is escorting a material witness who's about to testify against a mob boss. And they take this little private plane to get out of Alaska, and the guy that ends up flying the plane, played by Mark Wahlberg, turns out to be an assassin who's been hired by the person that Topher Grace is about to be a witness against. So it's a survival movie. You got two people trying to make it from point A to point B, trying to fly a plane with no knowledge of how to fly a plane while also navigating a psycho that's on board. And after seeing the film, I can give you a definitive answer as to why Mel Gibson decided to direct this. Bills were due. So starting off with the positives for Flight Risk, I will give a unenthusiastic thumbs up to Mark Wahlberg for at least his dedication to the character. You've seen the trailer, you've seen the bald head that he is sporting in this film, which has elicited a lot of laughs for good reason. And while I don't necessarily understand the creative choice to have his character be bald, I don't think that it really adds anything to his character. If anything, I think it takes away because it's hard to take it completely seriously. But I will at least commend him for committing to it because he's not wearing a bald cap. He actually shaved his head every single day while they were making this movie to keep that look of the character legit. So a gigantic piece of the top of his head right here is shaved, and a big piece in the back of his head is shaved. And that's all real. So I can at least commend him as an actor that he dedicated himself to this character. It's pretty ill-advised for the type of movie that this ends up being, but not a lot of actors would do that, and he did. So most of a thumbs up for you, Mark. And the other thing that I will say is that while it did not really have this quality for me, it did not have this effect for me, I could see a number of people getting a lot of so bad that it's good enjoyment out of this film, enjoying how ridiculous it is, enjoying how stupid it is, how silly it is, how ridiculous the writing is, how bad the dialogue is, how hard it is to take everything serious. There are some people that are going to watch this that are going to have a blast with that. You get the right group of people together, the right obnoxious friends, and you can just roast this thing as you watch it. It certainly rides the line of maybe having that type of quality to it that other people will probably enjoy more than I did. And I love a good disaster piece. I love a movie that just unintentionally fails at so many things that you can just have a blast with it. I don't think this quite gets there, but I can smell it on it. There's going to be some people that are able to get there where I wasn't.
Y'all need a pilot?
And that's really all positive that I have to say about this. This is an absolute baffling thing that exists. Like, Aside from the fact that Mel Gibson directing this is just weird to me, I still expected a certain level of quality out of it because it's Mel Gibson. Like, he is a very talented director, one of the best that has ever done it. So even though this is not typically his forte, if anything, I figured it would be an immaculate version of this type of film because it's so much simpler and smaller and easier than the things that he typically undertakes as a director. And I am here to tell you, Mel Gibson must have given zero fucks when he made this film. He cashed a paycheck, moved on with his life, because there is nothing in this film that gives any indication this is done by a director of his caliber. First of all, this thing is an absolute disaster as far as battling tones. It is way too silly and stupid and ridiculous to take it seriously as a legit thriller, but it is nowhere near funny or entertaining enough to have like a disaster piece level of entertainment, to just enjoy how ridiculous and stupid it is and just kick back and shut your brain off type of experience with it. It fails miserably at both of those objectives. You essentially have three characters that embody the entirety of this film. You have Topher Grace as the witness here. You have Mark Wahlberg as the assassin, the villain. And then you have Michelle Dockery, who's kind of the main character. She's the U.S. Marshal who is escorting Topher Grace and continuously battling with Mark Wahlberg. And I am here to tell you, all three of these actors feel like they are in completely different films.
Hey man, hey man, if one of these engines fails, how far will the other one take us? All the way to the scene of the crash.
Topher Grace, I got no hate for the guy. I think that he's genuinely good at the things that he is a fit for. But anytime he's in a serious role, maybe with the exception of Predators that I think he's decent in, he just does not work for that type of movie. He is inherently always a goofy character, and I don't think that he's able to act in a way that ever really escapes that. Like, he's basically doing the That 70s Show thing here in a movie where it makes no sense to do that. He's trying to have little quips, he's trying to have little moments of sarcasm, and it just feels tonally in competition with what everybody else is doing. Like, it's akin to his version of Eddie Brock, where you look at that and you go, wow, he was horribly miscast in that. I think he was horribly miscast here. You have Michelle Dockery, who I'm sure is probably good in other things. I'm not going to blame this movie on her, but she's about as wooden as you could get. And she feels like she's in this little bottle espionage film where she's just trying to, through dialogue and through conversation, figure out who the mole was, who the leak is, who is the person that is trying to get us killed up here in this plane. And so her character just fails to be interesting at any point. And then Mark Wahlberg, who is really the only person that kind of feels like he understands the type of movie that he's making. The script does him no favors. He's trying his best to be over the top and maniacal and scenery chewing, but he doesn't have near as much screen time that is needed to do that, and certainly does not have a good enough script written for him to do that. So he just ends up being like this weird little anomaly in the movie of something that could have been great, but feels completely undercooked. Despite him being the focus of the trailer, despite his face being 90% of the movie's poster, the majority of the runtime of the film, he's just in the background shot, handcuffed, sometimes unconscious, sometimes conscious, not saying anything. So it's just kind of like guest appearances throughout the plot whenever he decides to chime in. And it's always some variation of the same line. It's like, ha ha, yeah, I'm gonna get out of here and I'm gonna make it hurt. I'm gonna take my time with you two. And there's numerous points in the film where a character will throw out a line and you just roll your eyes and face palm. Again, something that, if just dialed in a little differently, could have led to a disaster piece quality, but just doesn't. It's just bad, stupid dialogue. But beyond that, just the story of the movie and how the plot unfolds, not only is it basic as fuck, but there are so many logic leaps and so many logic gaps in here that it's impossible to take this thing seriously. Not the least of which is why the fuck these characters are letting Mark Wahlberg live and just hang out in the back of the plane. I get it. That's the plot of the movie. It's one of those classic movie bullshit things where we have to do things that don't completely make sense because we need this movie to be at least 90 minutes long. I get that. Some movies are better at masking that than others. This is one that doesn't do a very good job, because as soon as he reveals himself as a villain, as somebody that has intended harm on these two and are going to kill them as soon as he gets the chance to, and they incapacitate him and lock him up in the back, the first thing that the U.S. Marshal character says is, we can't kill him because we don't know how to fly this plane. And then Topher Grace retorts with, well, he's probably not going to tell us how to fly this plane. Great point. Completely refutes your logic of why you kept him alive. And within minutes after that, they're able to get a hold of the agency that she works with. This is all first act stuff, by the way. They're able to get a hold of the agency that she works with and get like some flight assistants, people on the air that are able to tell her step by step how to fly this plane, how to keep it in the air, how to get it to the right heading. And they're going to help her get to point B, help her get to the ground. So yet again, a reason why there's no logical reason to keep this motherfucker alive in the back. Added in with, as you can imagine, numerous points throughout the film where he breaks free and is able to add just a moment of tension as he is, yet again, a giant threat that they have to incapacitate. At that point, you have no fucking reason not to put bullets in his ass. But they don't. They just let him chill in the back. And by the way, if you're somebody who's heading to the comment section to say spoilers, no, that's not a spoiler. That's literally just, that's in the trailer. That's something you could expect from this movie. It's like saying there's shooting in an action movie. It's not a fucking spoiler. And this is not a movie that even qualifies the word spoiler. But if you're somebody that is going to value their first watch experience with Flight Risk on that level, I don't know why you're watching this review to begin with, but go ahead and go watch the movie now. Come back to the review because I'm going to be describing a couple of scenes directly that aren't really plot related, just to express how ridiculous the writing is in this film. So beyond the logic gaps, there's also moments where there's something so stupid at play that you can't help but get mad when you watch it. Like, you almost have like a nervous laugh, like, oh my fucking God, this goddamn movie. Oh, there's a spot, again, still in the first act or so of the film where, you know, they've incapacitated Mark Wahlberg. They're like, oh my God, we got to figure out how to fly this fucking plane. He's disabled the GPS. He's disabled the like, how are we going to do this? We can't talk to anybody. And they're trying to figure out how to get this shit to work for like a good 7 to 8 minutes. And then randomly the U.S. Marshal character's like, oh yeah, I've got a satellite cell phone. I think that could help us. I'm sorry, bitch. How long have you had that in your pocket? But possibly the best element of this movie in the worst way. Like the one thing that legitimately I think does kind of succeed at a so bad that it's good element of Flight Risk is the most baffling decision that you could have possibly made for the plot of this film. When she actually starts to get a hold of her agency and gets people that can help her, and they contact somebody and put her in contact with somebody who's going to be like a flight assistance coordinator and tell her all the steps to do and when to turn the autopilot on and what heading and what to push and which levers do what. They use the most offensively stereotypical Indian customer service character that you could think of. Like they literally went to fucking Springfield and grabbed a poo out of the Quickie Mart. Like they got Gregory from Horrible Bosses to do this role. For what reason, I don't know. It doesn't quite get funny enough for me to say that it's like brilliantly horrible, but it's one of the things where you're like, did nobody at any point raise a point of concern about this? Because this is like laughably fucking wrong. And it is so on the nose stereotype. Like this guy's like, okay, just tilt the plane to the left and go to that heading and very good, very good. I swear to fucking God, he probably said, thank you, come again. And they cut it out. I swear to God, that was probably in the script somewhere. And as if that's not bad enough, like just the way this character is written, this is a very tense situation. Like this is a life-threatening scenario. You are trying to help this woman not die. And the only thing that she is focused on right now is getting from point A to point B over the next hour and not crashing into a fucking mountain or dying because of the psycho in the back they decided to keep fucking alive for some random reason. And this guy is the horniest customer service rep I've ever seen in my life, because every single fucking time that he gets her somewhat safe, somewhat stable, like she's heading to the right heading and everything's smooth sailing, he always finds some way to flirt with her or ask her on a date or something. And at no point does the character ever acknowledge it. And at no point does the performance of the U.S. Marshal acknowledge it. She actually like smiles and is loving this, that she's getting like a date out of this situation that she's probably not going to fucking survive. It was awesome. Like, I'm telling you, like they just get to a heading. She just got done getting shot at. She's like, oh, everything's good. And he's like, oh, everything's good. Well, things could be better later. And look, I'm hamming it up a bit. I'm doing more humor work for this character and for this movie than the actual movie does. So I'm doing it to express how ridiculous it is. Don't let this sell you on this actually being like a hilariously bad movie, because it just doesn't get there. Like, I'm much funnier with what I'm doing than Flight Risk is. And then just beyond all of that, as I've kind of hinted at, like, there's just no tension here. There's no genuine thrills. There's not enough room in the story to really do anything exciting or to do anything that really puts you on the edge of your seat. Most of the movie, Mark Wahlberg is just handcuffed in the back. He doesn't get a whole lot of time to really be this maniacal villain or really do any kind of damage. He's just handcuffed in the back, talking shit, and he is unconscious for a good part of the film. So every once in a while, you'll get a moment that's supposed to be tense, but the majority of this movie is just the U.S. Marshal character and the witness character talking to each other, and the U.S. Marshal character talking to somebody on her headphone. That's the majority of all of this, which is not thrilling, funny, entertaining, or interesting. It's just something. It just exists. So needless to say, y'all need a pilot? No, the fuck we don't. This is a movie that I did not enjoy, and I'm primed to be somebody that could find some redeeming quality here, and I struggled to find almost anything. So I don't recommend you check this out. I don't even think that it's going to be a good or a fun experience at home. If you're somebody that just really loves disaster pieces, you really love so bad that it's good movies, maybe give this a shot when it goes to VOD, but I'm telling you, it doesn't quite get there for me as somebody that does enjoy those types of movies. So all this amounts to is being a really weird throwaway January film that for some fucking weird reason is directed by Mel Gibson. So now he's the guy that directed Braveheart, The Passion of the Christ, Hacksaw Ridge, and Flight Risk. That's it for this one, guys. If you enjoyed that, please click over here for all of my 2025 new release reviews. I'm also going to put a tier list video I did up here where I did a quality prediction of all the 2025 new releases that we know about so far, one of which being Flight Risk, which is another film that I got the prediction wrong on. So check that out if you're interested. Like, share, hit the subscribe button so you don't miss everything that's coming in 2025. And as always, remember, opinions are like assholes, but that doesn't mean you have to be.